Depending who you speak to, Trump is either going to be the saviour of the world or he's going to be the next Hitler. Since the Second World War, I can't think of one intervention the West has done that was successful and the people in that country loved us for doing it. We end up making things worse, and the people we went to save then end up hating us.
He outperformed in almost every demographic. He did very well with young people. He did well with women. He did well with black men. He broke a record with Hispanic voters.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest is a lady I met about 18 months ago. We're both in London at the NatCon conference, and we spent 40 minutes walking around Westminster at night looking for an open restaurant to get something to eat, and we ended up giving up. That's our capital city now. You can't find anything to eat after a certain time in the evening. It's like a ghost town, absolutely shocking. But first of all, welcome, Jennifer, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick. It was, I can't believe that was 18 months ago. Hopefully you found something to eat since then.
Well, that evening after we parted, I just went home. I just went back to my hotel and went to bed. I gave up trying to get anything to eat. You would have had the better chance getting something to eat in Manchester city centre, not the capital of the country. Absolutely shocking. But today, thank you for coming on our podcast. What I wanted to talk to you about today, because of who you are. You're a spokesperson for the Republicans overseas. Now, is that officially connected to the Republican Party in America? Is it a sidearm? Is it something that you set up? Just quickly, what is that?
Sure. So Republicans Overseas UK is the UK arm of a larger organization called Republican Overseas, which has, everywhere from, Hungary, Israel, Hong Kong, all places all over the globe. And we are not an official say arm of the Republican Party, although we work very closely with the Republican Party, if that makes sense. We were working closely with them to get out the vote, and just on different campaign issues, campaign messages. So there is a very tight relationship. Our I guess you'd say, I don't know if you want to call it the competitors or our peers at Democrats Abroad, they actually are an official arm of the Democrat Party. And we know that because when we are often on television or radio with our counterparts there, they're limited very much in what they can talk about with regards to foreign policy or other thing. But Republicans, we like free speech. So we're not all clones of one another, and we're pretty much free to talk about whatever we want.
And that's what always happens with our Labour Party here, your Democratic Party over there. When you're a socialist organization, you want to control everything. You have that heavy fist like Stalin, and all information has to come through you. But other parties who believe in free speech and free expression are quite happy working and being friends with people who have different views. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. And I think one theme that we saw over the US election cycle over the last year, 18 months, was sort of the this new Republican Party that had formed, had very much gone from the party of Bush, to a more populist party indeed. And within our group at Republicans Overseas UK, there are those of us who sit, on one side of things, and then those on another side of things, and we'll debate and argue amongst ourselves, which is a good thing. So yeah, all views welcome. But at the end of the day, we vote Republican. And unlike the Democrats, we're not collectivists. We believe in, anti-censorship, free speech, patriotism. And indeed, a lot of people agreed with those views, and that's why we saw Donald Trump get elected a month ago.
That's a great segue into the question I want to discuss on this podcast. As we all know, Trump won the election, and it was a landslide. It seems to have won everything, the popular vote. Has he won the House and the Senate now?
He has a very small margin, and interestingly, some of the states, like my home state of California, I mean, I think they were still counting votes until about 2 days ago. The last race came in, and the other interesting thing is these races, whether it be down ballot races, House, Senate, whatever, that took a month, 3 weeks to count, they all came in on the Democrat side, I don't know what the read in there is. Perhaps it's just a big coincidence, but no, the Trump took the popular vote, which is the first time that's happened for a Republican in about 40 years. Um, and he won every single swing state. And then, of course, down ballot, we kept the House and took the Senate.
Yeah, excellent. Now, depending who you speak to in this country, obviously, because they're the only sort of people I speak to. Depending who you speak to, Trump is either going to be the savior of the world or he's going to be the next Hitler. I'm a little bit in between. Um, I'm excited with Trump because of some of his policies I've heard. Because we need change. The whole West and America, we're stagnant. We're just living on the laurels and victories of yesterday, and we're just slowly declining. So rather than discussing conspiracy theories and what other people have said about Trump and his policies, I wanted to speak to you about someone who's in the know. What has Trump said he's going to do over the next 4 years? What can we look forward to seeing?
Sure. So let's take the two biggest issues that people voted for, and that would be economy and inflation, and then controlling the United States border, both on the south with Mexico and then on the north with Canada, which is not as big of a deal as the south, but it's still something that is being looked at. So those are the two biggest mandates. Um, and that's what people wanted. And that was not just, white working class men. That was, he outperformed in almost every demographic. He did very well with young people. He did well with women. He did well with black men. He broke a record with Hispanic voters. So that is what people wanted. So you're definitely going to see on day one. You're already seeing it right now with the tariff discussions. Those are going to be used as a tool, a negotiating tool to help close the border. And just sticking with the border, it's important to remember, and I'm sure you do, that Trump ran on closing the border in 2015 for the 2016 election. And he was, wildly criticized for being racist or homophobic or all sorts of things. He did, build part of the wall that got held up in some bureaucracy, but he started to build the wall, and he indeed controlled illegal, or not talking about legal, but illegal immigration. Now, when Biden and Harris got in 2021, one of the first things they did was take a pen and put a line through 93 of Trump's border policies, including remain in Mexico, which very effective. So expect to see some border measures go into effect almost immediately. He will take executive action to do that, and he's got the mandate. The second thing you're going to see with regards to the economy and inflation is a lot of deregulation. People are talking about we're going to see this golden era of economics for America. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, obviously. We have a massive debt. It's, I think, somewhere near 37 trillion at this point. But he is going to be taking steps, whether it's tax decreases, whether it's this newly formed Doge, which is Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. So they'll be looking at a lot of the government waste, whether it's, $1.5 million for watching goats do yoga or some, other crazy things that they're doing. We're going to start looking, at the government waste, and again return the U.S. government to a government that works for the people rather than works for themselves. So those are the two biggest issues that you will expect to automatically, I would say see changes on. I think the other goal he has, and you can tell this by his own words and also the people that he's surrounding himself with, is he needs to put out a lot of these fires around the world. Our foreign policy is a disaster at this moment in time. And it always amazes me when people, especially Europeans and indeed many people in the UK, think, oh my God, Trump is so dangerous, and, things could get so, out of control with him as president, and because he's, erratic and he's got the nuclear codes. Well, let's keep in mind we've already had one Trump presidency, and the world did not fall apart. As a matter of fact, he's the only president we did not have any new wars under of our most recent presidents. And for those people who love to say he's a Putin puppet, I remind you that Trump is the only president within our last four that Putin did not invade another country under. Of course, he invaded Georgia under Bush, and then Ukraine under Obama, and then Ukraine again under Biden. So I think whether it's because he's unpredictable, or actually what I think it is because he actually talks to people. He uses diplomacy. He will talk to anyone. The leader of North Korea, obviously, he'll have open channels with Putin, with Netanyahu. And we even saw the other day that Elon Musk had met with two of the, I believe it was two representatives, the United Nations representatives from Iran. So, perhaps we'll start talking to them as well. And it doesn't mean we're going to immediately have world peace, or become great allies with many of these countries, but not talking, which has been the case right now, especially in Russia, Ukraine, has not served anyone well.
No, absolutely not. Let's jump back to the immigration problem. Apart from building the wall, I've heard obviously the press reporting that Trump is saying he's going to deport 10, 20 million people. Is that something that can be done in America? Can the president do that? We're talking about illegals here. We're not talking about just picking people in the street and saying you're deported. But people who actually broke into the country, who I then class as a criminal. If you break into my house, you're a criminal. You break into my country, you're a criminal. We've got estimates of 1.5 million people in this country who are illegal. I would double that figure personally. I'd say it's more like 3 million. And we're debating that here. Even our politicians that we're looking at who are trying to give us hope, people like Nigel Farage are saying we can't deport them. So I want to know what's Trump going to do? Because if he does it right, we've got someone to point to and go, look, they're doing it. We should be doing it.
Exactly. So he's brought on board this guy called Tom Homan, who he's been basically he actually did the job of a border guard for many, many years. I believe he's served under 6 different presidents. And he was also the former director of ICE. So what he is saying is there's so much so-called low-hanging fruit, right? So these are people who we know are in the country and have either ignored reports to deport themselves, or have committed, pretty heinous and serious crimes. So by his estimates, I think there's 1.3 to 1.6 million of those, real criminals, bad people, like the ones who, some of these Venezuelan gangs who killed Lake and Riley, and some of these other young women. So he's going to start with that group of people. So it's not going to be, somebody's abuela, grandmother is, ripped out of her house and she's been living peacefully in the United States for several decades. That's not what's going on here at all. He's going to start with the more serious criminals. And then you add that with what I just mentioned, which is the Remain in Mexico, which was a very effective policy, which basically meant that an asylum seeker, when they were trying to get into the United States, they remained on the other side of the border, versus what Biden and Harris have done, which is just literally put people on flights and send them anywhere they wanted to go in America. The saying is every town is a border town in America right now. And then, expect them to report back when their court date shows up. So that will end. On top of that, you're going to see some out of the box creative thinking in ways to control the border. I did talk about the tariffs, which will be used. And then also, he had a conversation, I believe, with Venezuela the other day, where he said, okay, maybe there's a way in which we will start using your oil again, but you need to stop emptying your prisons into the United States of America. and get these people back. So you're going to see all sorts of creative solutions, but also because, as we have discussed, that the Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing. So expect to see all over the mainstream media a lot of histrionics about, Trump is, using the military to sweep through the United States and kick everybody out. That's not what's going to happen.
Yeah, good. Let's jump to the economy. I used to work for a local authority in England, there, Manchester Council. I worked there for a decade. I've seen the waste. I've seen the incompetence. I've seen the money that is spent on things you wouldn't believe. Well, you probably would believe it, but most people wouldn't believe the things I saw money being spent on. An example would be we spent something like £15,000 so unemployed people could do a tightrope walking course to boost their confidence so they'll go get a job. And 6 people attended the course over several weeks. It cost £15,000. And I could reel off dozens and dozens of these sort of woke, stupid things. We spent money. When I say money on, my taxes, that's where the money comes from, my taxes.
Exactly.
So I've seen Elon Musk is talking about cutting trillions from the budget, looking at getting rid of whole departments, whole sector of the civil service in America, in Washington, D.C. Could you just talk about that for a moment?
Sure. So I think you're referring to the Department of Governmental Efficiency, which actually will not be an official government department. They're an advisor. He and Vivek Ramaswamy will be running this, and they've given themselves a deadline of July 4th, 2026, which interestingly coincides with the 250th anniversary of the United States. But they've given themselves that deadline to start, take almost like an Argentinian style Javier Milei chainsaw to a lot of the government waste. And while, the numbers that they're saying they want to cut, I'm not sure those could actually be reached unless you go after serious entitlements, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, which nobody is really on the record as saying they want to do. But what you will see is people all of a sudden having to justify what it is they do. Is the job necessary? So on and so forth. And, as you just said, this is our money that pays for it. The government doesn't have any money. So they very much have a mandate to use efficiency to clean house within the government. And I think there's a lot to be learned from the private sector in regards to that. I mean, we know if you have a job in the private sector and you don't perform, or you can't be bothered to come in to work, and you're still working from home, you'd lose your job. So why shouldn't the same hold true for government employees? So you are going to see that. The other thing to discuss with regards to the economy is you're going to see tons of deregulation with regards to the energy sector. So we will go back to being, very, very energy independent.
Drill, baby, drill.
Joe, baby Joe. That's exactly right. And I'm sure you saw the night of the election at the watch party when Trump was giving Bobby Kennedy Jr. tons of praise about all of the work he's going to do around MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again. He's talking about the food, and then the vicious cycle we have with drugs to fix the chronic diseases we have in America because of the food. And he's giving Kennedy all sorts of compliments, but then he says, but stay away from the liquid gold, Bobby. And that was sort of, an acknowledgement. Bobby is a very successful long-term environmental lawyer. But that was Trump saying, hey, I'm still Jill, baby Jill. So, you stay in this lane, which I also think is a great thing because it shows that everybody, who works for or around Trump, they don't have to agree on everything. There's a lot of ideological diversity actually within the people he's surrounding himself with. And I think that's a good thing. You've got a lot of libertarians in there, which I think, definitely helped wins a certain sector of the voting population. Definitely say the Bitcoin people, the crypto people, that's 50 million holders in the United States, conservatively speaking. And a lot of those people were one issue voters. So they voted on that. I know a lot of younger people loved that he brought on Bobby Kennedy Jr., again, just because of what I mentioned with the health and the drug cycle, but also I mean, just going back to foreign policy for a moment, a lot of younger people don't want these forever wars carrying on. They don't want these regime change wars. So you're seeing a lot of pushback on what are we doing in Ukraine? You know, it's almost been 3 years. Nobody at the Biden administration can say what winning looks like. It's completely unaudited. And is this in the best interest of America? And the answer a lot of people are finding is no, it is not. So you're going to see, his America First policies really woven throughout a lot of what he does. That's not America alone, or a return to isolationism, but it is, hey, the president's job is to look after the overall well-being of the American people. And whether that's, inflation, economy, border security, some of the foreign policy stuff that's gone on, some of the DEI policies, some of the overly restrictive, damaging net zero policies. This is not serving the average American. And Trump's been given a mandate to, put our own oxygen mask on first and make America great again, to use that phrase that gets used all the time.
No, exactly. You're right about those forever wars. Since the Second World War, I can't think of one intervention the West has done that was successful and the people in that country loved us for doing it. We end up making things worse, and the people we went to save then end up hating us. And that is no strategy to win hearts and minds around the world. And while we're talking about the army, that brings me to my final point. I read something the other day that Trump is saying he's going to medically discharge the 1,500 trans people who work in the military.
I don't know about that. I do know that the people he's going to, and we'll see if Pete Hegseth gets through as the defense secretary. A lot of these appointments, not all of them, many of them, and certainly that one, need to be approved. But whether it's Pete Hegseth or somebody else, Ron DeSantis' name has been thrown in the mix. That's the governor of Florida. They are going to de-wokify the military. That is for sure. And the part of the reason is the people signing up to join the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines has just cratered over the last several years. Now, whether it's because people don't believe in some of these wars or it's because it's just become over wokeified. So I don't know if he's going to kick out the transgender people. Bill Clinton, as you remember, many years ago, famously told gay people, don't ask, don't tell, right? And that was a reference in if you're gay and you want to serve, fine, don't ask, don't tell. But no, I don't know the answer to whether or not he will do that, but you will probably not see, these admirals that used to be men are dressing as women and all sorts of this stuff. I think it's going to go back to, we need peace through strength, and we need a very strong army.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think Russia, Iran, North Korea, China are looking at the British army and American army and going, oh, they look awfully fierce. We don't want to mess with them. They're more likely looking at us going, what a bunch of idiots. If these are the people running the armies of the West, we have no reason to fear these idiots.
No, it's I think I mean, just to kind of on the same theme, we're going to go back to not just in the military, in all areas, good old-fashioned meritocracy. Not box ticking because this looks good or some corporate sponsor will cancel you if you don't do this. But meritocracy. Are you the best person for the job? Great. Then you get the job. It doesn't matter your immutable characteristics. If you're a man or a woman or you're black or white or Asian, doesn't matter. If you're the best at the job, you'll get the job. And you can see a lot of the people that he's appointed, um, are from all over the place, but they're not making a big deal about it, right? They're not saying, oh, this is the first gay Treasury Secretary, because it doesn't matter. Because Scott Bessent is just a successful guy that's going to be great at that job. So who cares what his personal situation is?
Exactly. We've spent 100 years trying to get over nepotism, trying to get over knowing the right person to get the job. And we've been trying to push this thing about who's the best person for the job. And just when we get there, a new group come along and go, oh no, we don't like that because it means we never get any jobs. We want to go back to who box ticking and all those different characteristics. And it's killing the West. And I'm glad to see we've finally got someone who's going to do something about it. Jennifer, thank you very much for sparing your time and coming on today. That's been really useful. I hope my listeners will find it useful because like I say, it depends who you speak to. It depends what you hear about Trump. And I just wanted to get a real clear point of view of what Trump is saying he's going to do. So thank you very much for coming on.
Welcome. The fear, I would just say the one last thing. The fear over the return of President Trump has been wildly overblown. And we know a lot of those tropes used against him by the Democrats and the media in the lead up to the election that he's a fascist, he's Hitler. Well, the voters disagreed, the voters disagreed and they didn't believe it because they've already seen 4 years of him as president. So
exactly. And I say to people who say that to me, the test is he's been president for 4 years. What did he do you didn't like? Point to something. What did he do? What? And apart from he wanted to overthrow the government on January 6th, it's like that's crazy. But that's all been a lot of smoke and mirrors and things happened on January 6th. Of course it did, just like we had riots in this country. But when he was in power for 4 years, apart from COVID, everything was going really well for America.
no, you're right, and especially now we know a lot how many of those things that they had said he had done wrong have been proven false, thanks to opening of the Twitter files, and we know how COVID-19 and indeed the U.S. 2020 election, two of the most censored events in modern American history. Now we have free flowing information. I think the U.S. is going to be keeping an eye on the U.K. though and Europe with regards to their sort of, well, obviously there's not a First Amendment here, but expect the US to be watching carefully what goes on in the UK with regards to free speech or free speech abuses.
Oh, I hope so. At the moment, we need all the help we can get. The plus side for me is this Labour government won't last long. I don't think no. I think they'll be gone in 2 years. Something will
2 years.
happen. 2 years. They won't get to five. I think they'll do about 2 years. I think, and then everything will come crashing down. But we shall see. Jennifer, thank you very much. If I don't speak to you before, have a great Christmas.
Take care. Bye, Nick.
Bye bye.